Just take your medicine, Olivia. You know how anxious you get, Marcus said, handing me 2 pills and a glass of water. His voice was gentle, caring, the perfect concerned husband. I stared at the pills in my palm, the same ones I'd been taking for the past 6 months, the ones that were supposed to help with my anxiety. My hands trembled slightly as I lifted them to my mouth. Marcus watched intently, making sure I swallowed them. He always watched. I'm Olivia Chen, 34, and 6 months ago, I was a successful architectural designer. Now I could barely get through the day without feeling dizzy, confused, and increasingly weak. My once busy life had shrunk to the confines of our house, with Marcus controlling every aspect of my existence, all under the guise of caring for his sick wife. Good girl, he smiled, taking the glass from my shaking hands. I have to go to work now. Your mother will check on you later. He kissed my forehead, the gesture making my skin crawl. As soon as the front door closed, I rushed to the bathroom, my new morning ritual. The world spun as I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection. Dark circles under my eyes, pale skin, and I'd lost so much weight my clothes hung loose. What was happening to me? It started gradually after our 3rd anniversary. Small things at first, forgetting where I put my keys, missing appointments. Then came the dizziness, the constant fatigue. Marcus was the one who suggested anxiety medication. He'd already told my family about my episodes, painting himself as the devoted husband caring for his unstable wife. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Marcus says you're having a bad day. Please take your medicine and rest. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. They all believed him. My parents, my sister, even my best friend Emma. Why wouldn't they? Marcus was a respected pharmacist known for his charitable work and gentle demeanor. I was just being difficult and ungrateful. But something wasn't right. The symptoms always got worse after taking the pills. I tried to tell my family, but Marcus always had an explanation ready. The anxiety is making her paranoid, he'd say, shaking his head sadly. The doctor warned us this might happen. The doctor, his friend Dr. Powell, who never ran any real tests, who only spoke to Marcus about my condition. I wasn't even allowed in the room during consultations anymore. Today was different though. I had my first appointment with a new specialist, one Marcus didn't know about. I'd been secretly saving cash from my emergency stash, planning this for weeks. The hospital was only a short Uber ride away. As I sat in a sterile examination room, Nurse Sarah took my vitals, her forehead creasing as she noted my symptoms. Your blood pressure is concerning, she said, making notes. We'll need to run some tests. My husband says it's just anxiety. I mumbled, the rehearsed explanation feeling bitter on my tongue. Nurse Sarah looked at me sharply, her green eyes intense. Mrs. Walker, how long have you been taking these medications? I showed her the pill bottle Marcus had given me. Her eyes widened slightly, but she kept her voice professional. We'll need to draw some blood. As she prepared the needle, I felt a sudden urge to tell her everything. About how Marcus controlled my food, my medicine, my whole life. About how I wasn't allowed to drive anymore or use the internet without supervision. About how he'd slowly isolated me from everyone except those who believed his version of events. Sometimes I whispered, I think I'm going crazy. Everyone says it's all in my head. Nurse Sarah paused, looking directly at me. Mrs. Walker, has anyone ever tested your blood since these symptoms started? I shook my head. Dr. Powell said it wasn't necessary. My husband agreed. Her expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. She drew several vials of blood, more than seemed necessary for routine tests. We'll rush these through the lab, she said. Please wait here. An hour passed. My phone kept buzzing, messages from Marcus asking where I was. I told him I was resting at home. My hands shook as I ignored the texts. When Nurse Sarah returned, she wasn't alone. A tall woman in a dark suit accompanied her, showing me an FBI badge. Mrs. Walker, the agent said gently, we need to talk about what we found in your blood work. My heart stopped. What? What did you find? The agent sat down, her expression grave. High levels of thallium, a toxic heavy metal. It's often used in rat poison, but it can also be used to slowly poison humans. The levels in your system suggest long-term exposure. The room started spinning, but not from the poison this time. Are you saying someone's been poisoning you? Nurse Sarah finished. Yes, Mrs. Walker, and given the consistent levels, it's been happening daily. through medication. The FBI agent leaned forward. Mrs. Walker, we need to know. Who handles your medication? I felt the world collapse around me as I whispered, my husband. The pharmacist. Everything happened quickly after that. The FBI agent, Agent Torres, explained that they'd been investigating several suspicious deaths connected to Marcus's pharmacy. We had our suspicions, she said, but no concrete evidence until now. They wouldn't let me return home. Instead, I was admitted to the hospital's secure wing under a false name. The nurses began a detoxification process, hooking me up to IVs and monitoring my vitals constantly. My body ached as the poison slowly left my system. But my mind was clearing for the first time in months. Your husband is at the front desk, Nurse Sarah informed me the next morning. He's demanding to see you. Says you're having a mental breakdown. I pulled the blanket tighter around myself. He doesn't know you called the FBI. She shook her head. He thinks this is a regular hospital admission. Agent Torres wants to keep it that way for now. Through my hospital room window, I could see Marcus at the nurse's station, putting on his concerned husband act. He was wearing his light blue sweater, the one he always wore when he needed to appear trustworthy. His voice carried down the hallway. My wife is very unstable. She needs her medication. I'm sorry, sir, Nurse Sarah replied firmly. Hospital policy requires us to use our own pharmacy for all medications. I watched his face twitch slightly, a micro-expression of anger, before he smoothed it back into worried concern. At least let me see her. She must be terrified without me. Terrified with you, I thought. Agent Torres arrived that afternoon with more news. We searched your house, she said, sitting beside my bed. Found his laboratory in the basement, hidden behind that private wine cellar he was so protective of. My hands started shaking. A laboratory, professional-grade equipment, records going back years. You weren't his first victim, Olivia. She showed me photographs of journals they'd discovered, detailed notes written in Marcus's precise handwriting. Dosages, symptoms, timelines. My name was just the latest in a series of entries. There were others. I asked though I already knew the answer. 3 other women. All dead. All ruled natural causes or suicide. Agent Torres's voice was gentle but firm. He's been perfecting his method for years. The previous victims' families thought they were just sick or unstable, just like your family thinks about you now. My mother had been calling constantly, leaving voicemails that swung between anger and pleading. Marcus is worried sick. How could you do this to him? He's done nothing but take care of you. Take care of me. The phrase had a whole new meaning now. We need your help, Olivia, Agent Torres said. We can prove the poisoning, but with your testimony, we can show the psychological manipulation too. How he isolated you, convinced everyone you were unstable, controlled every aspect of your life. I thought about all the other women in his journals. How alone they must have felt. How confused and scared, just like I had been. How everyone probably told them they were just being difficult, just like they told me. What do you need me to do? I asked. Agent Torres smiled. First, we need to record everything. Every detail you can remember about when this started, how he administered the poison, who he convinced to help him, even unknowingly. As I recounted everything, patterns emerged that I hadn't seen before. How he'd started suggesting I work from home more often, claiming he was worried about my stress levels. How he'd gradually convinced my friends I was becoming agoraphobic. How he'd switched my regular doctor to his friend Dr. Powell. Classic isolation tactics, Agent Torres noted. Combined with the physical symptoms from the poison, it was the perfect trap. Nurse Sarah came in with my evening medication. Actual anti-anxiety medication this time, prescribed by a real doctor to help me cope with the trauma. Your husband's back, she reported. This time with your parents. I moved to the window, watching the scene unfold. My mother was crying, my father demanding answers. Marcus stood slightly apart, playing the devastated husband perfectly. He's good, Agent Torres observed. But not good enough. Not anymore. She was right. Now that I could see clearly, his act seemed obvious. The way he kept touching his wedding ring when he lied. A tell I'd noticed years ago but forgotten about. The slight clench in his jaw when things didn't go his way. Tomorrow, Agent Torres said, we're going to let him see you. Under supervision, of course. We'll be recording everything. Based on his pattern, He'll try to give you something. A drink, a pill, anything to get the poison into your system. I felt my heart rate spike. You want me to confront him? Only if you're ready. But this might be our best chance to catch him in the act, to get him to reveal something about the other victims. I looked out at Marcus again, at the man I'd trusted with my life, the man who'd been systematically destroying that life for months. I thought about the other women in his journals, women who never got the chance I was getting now. I'm ready, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Let's end this. The next morning, I sat in my hospital bed, heart pounding as I waited for Marcus. Agent Torres had fitted me with a nearly invisible recording device, and several agents were positioned as hospital staff nearby. Remember, Agent Torres said, let him take the lead. He'll likely try to maintain his caring husband facade at first. When Marcus walked in, he was carrying a small paper bag and wearing his most concerned expression. Sweetheart, he said softly, rushing to my bedside. I've been so worried. I forced myself to stay still as he kissed my forehead, fighting the urge to recoil. I'm sorry, I whispered, playing my part. I just felt so confused. That's why you need your medication, darling. He reached into the bag, pulling out a bottle of water. The doctors here don't understand your condition like I do. I watched him carefully unscrew the cap, noting how he held the bottle slightly differently than usual. Agent Torres' words echoed in my mind. They found traces of thallium in the threading of bottle caps in his lab. You must be thirsty, he said, holding out the bottle. The nurse mentioned you've been having trouble keeping water down. My hands shook as I reached for it, not entirely in act. Marcus, I said quietly, why did Catherine Nels have the same symptoms I do? His hand froze mid-motion. Who? Catherine Mills. She was a patient at your pharmacy 2 years ago, before she died. I met his eyes. She had anxiety too, didn't she? And trouble keeping water down. The caring mask slipped for just a second, revealing something cold underneath, but he recovered quickly, setting the water bottle aside. Honey, you're confused. This is exactly why you need your proper medication. Like Susan Chen? I continued. Or Patricia Howard? They were confused too, weren't they? Before they died. This time the mask cracked completely. His eyes hardened, his jaw tightened. Who have you been talking to? Your journals, I said, my voice growing stronger. The FBI found them in your basement lab. All your detailed notes about symptoms and dosages. About how long it took each woman to die. He stood up abruptly, glancing at the door. But before he could move, Agent Torres and 2 other agents entered the room. It's over, Mr. Walker, she said, holding up her badge. What happened next revealed the true Marcus. His entire demeanor changed. The caring husband vanished, replaced by cold fury. He lunged for the water bottle, but an agent quickly restrained him. You don't understand, he snarled, struggling against the handcuffs. I was helping them. They were all weak, pathetic. I made their deaths mean something. By experimenting on them? Agent Torres asked, her voice hard. By documenting their suffering. His laugh was chilling. Someone had to advance the science. Their lives were worthless anyway, just like yours, Olivia. You were always so desperate to please, so easy to manipulate. I stood up from the bed, my legs shaky but holding. Not anymore. As they led him away, he kept ranting about his research, about how we didn't understand his genius. My parents, who had been watching through the window, stood shocked and pale. I'm so sorry, my mother sobbed, rushing to hug me. We should have listened. We should have seen. The following weeks were a blur of medical treatments, police statements, and court preparations. The evidence against Marcus was overwhelming, not just my case, but the 3 previous murders. His journals provided detailed confessions, and the FBI found traces of thallium in hair samples from his other victims. During the trial, I testified about everything: the gaslighting, the isolation, the slow poisoning. Other witnesses came forward too. Pharmacy technicians who'd noticed discrepancies but were too afraid to speak up, neighbors who'd seen strange deliveries to his basement. Marcus was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. As they led him away, he looked at me one last time, his face a mask of hatred. But I didn't flinch. I wasn't his victim anymore. 1 year later, I stood at a podium, addressing a room full of medical professionals and law enforcement officers. Trust your instincts, I told them. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And please, Listen to your patients when they say something isn't right. Nurse Sarah, who had become a close friend, sat in the front row, smiling proudly. Thanks to her quick thinking and willingness to listen, we had not only stopped a serial killer but also established a new protocol for identifying poisoning cases. As I left the conference hall, I passed a mirror and paused. The woman reflected back at me stood tall and strong, nothing like the pale, frightened person I'd been a year ago. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother about dinner plans. Our relationship was healing slowly, built on a new foundation of trust and careful listening. I stepped out into the sunlight, breathing deeply. Sometimes the most dangerous poisons aren't the ones that kill you quickly. They're the ones that make you doubt yourself, that isolate you from help, that make you think you're crazy for suspecting the truth. But I survived, and now I was helping others do the same. The truth, like poison, always reveals itself eventually. You just have to stay alive long enough to expose it.